Hello ladies and gents, it's Jake here, and throughout the 4 main installments in the Batman Arkham series, there are quite a large number of boss battles, and today I decided to take each game and rank the boss battles in them from worst to best, and today we're starting with Arkham Asylum. Now with this game, the devs hadn't quite figured out the formula for boss fights yet, so as a result, they're not exactly great. Also, I want to quickly mention that I won't be counting the 2 encounters with Zsasz as a boss battle due to the way they're incorporated into the game as just another Predator hostage encounter. With all that said, let me know how you would rank the Arkham Asylum boss fights in the comments below, and let's begin. Starting off in last place, I have the final boss against Titan Joker. This boss just doesn't work for me on any level. Narratively, it makes no sense as it's out of character for Joker to turn himself into a hulking monster, the moment itself feels really forced, and the actual fight is just borrowing the concept of the fight against Bane, but does a much worse job of executing it. The fight doesn't add anything new to the game, it doesn't feel like something that the story has been building toward, and it isn't actually that fun to play either. I get that the Joker wouldn't be a physical threat on his own, and he shouldn't be, but future games in the series found a way to have a nice final showdown with Joker that was carried more through the dialogue and the writing than the gameplay itself. And while the dialogue is easily the best thing about this fight, as Mark Hamill doesn't miss a beat, that still isn't enough to save this boss from being not only the worst in the game, but probably the single worst aspect of the game overall. Next up, I've got the fight against Bane. Now this boss fight is certainly better than the Joker boss that copies it, but it's not incredibly special either. Much like the Joker boss, I'm really not a fan of the narrative surrounding this encounter, and a lot of that has to do with how Bane is portrayed. This game portrays Bane as a blubbering idiot that just wants to smash things, and Bane is commonly portrayed as much more intelligent than that, like during his debut in Nightfall, and other media such as Batman the Animated Series and The Dark Knight Rises. In terms of the actual fight, it's incredibly basic. All you have to do is wait for Bane to charge, jump out of his way, and then beat him until he comes to, while dodging the occasional object or thug being thrown at you. The fight gets slightly challenging when Joker calls in some thugs to help Bane, as it gives you a little more to worry about, but it's still dull in spite of that. I will say that the secret game over screen that takes a page out of Nightfall with Bane breaking Batman's back is a really cool detail, but that's about all the enjoyment I get from this boss fight. Right in the middle at number 3, I have the boss fight against Poison Ivy. This is another boss fight that's pretty basic, but has some interesting elements to it. I like how the player is constantly on the move here in order to avoid either the spores shot from Ivy's plants, or the vines that come up from the ground. Both of these aspects really raise the stakes and keep the player on their feet, though it does get a little on the boring side when all you have to do is wait for Ivy's shell to open up, which is the only way you can deal massive damage to her. However, one cool detail that I've noticed over the years is that if you repeatedly use the Quickfire Batarang on Ivy's shell, it does little amounts of chip damage over time, which doesn't make a huge difference, but it can certainly help. Like most of the fights on this list, the dialogue is definitely entertaining, though it can get old after a while as the same couple of lines are often recycled. Looking at the rest of the series, this boss doesn't really hold up, but it's decent enough when compared to those in this game. Getting close to the end, I have the boss fight against Scarecrow, and although I mentioned at the start of the video that the boss fights in this game aren't exactly great, these last 2 definitely are. Something I'll mention is that I'm actually lumping all 3 of the Scarecrow encounters together into one placement, since they share a lot of similarities, and I really don't feel like repeating the same points 3 times. These encounters really accomplish that horror feeling that the game is going for. Scarecrow seems like a genuine threat here, where he definitely wouldn't be without his toxin. The narrative surrounding these encounters is also really compelling, with the first encounter coming right after Gordon seemingly dies and Batman sees these zombie versions of his parents. The second has this super emotional recreation of the Wayne's death, and the third has that infamous heart-stopping moment where everyone thought the game had crashed. These encounters come with their own environments unique to different parts of the asylum and make for really fun platforming segments. Having to fight the skeletons while keeping out of Scarecrow's gaze was another fun challenge, and it really made you utilize the confined areas to your advantage. Also, seeing various deranged Batmen in the third segment was a very cool detail that really emphasized that eerie horror feeling. All of these aspects together give Scarecrow a really threatening presence in this game and makes for a very memorable boss fight while lacking a lot of the traditional boss fight elements. And in first place, I have the boss fight against Killer Croc. Similar to Scarecrow, this is another boss that is certainly a departure from a traditional boss fight, but certainly leaves a mark in spite of that. This encounter puts Batman into a very tense situation, where he has to sneak through Killer Croc's lair to gain spores for the Titan antidote. While the narrative here is slightly minimalistic, the aesthetic of the boss and the threat level of Killer Croc are more than enough to make up for it. In the cutscene prior to the fight, we see Croc take down Scarecrow with ease, so that already provides a level of fear that even Scarecrow himself doesn't match. Moving through the lair while hearing Croc taunt you from underwater really makes your hair stand up, and every time he emerges to chase you, it always raises your heart rate as you rush to find Croc before he gets to you. Another level of fear is added with Croc destroying several platforms as you move throughout the lair, along with the line launcher segments where Croc reaches out from the water in an attempt to grab you. The feeling of dread that this boss gives is unmatched by any other in the game, and it definitely makes Croc stand out. And while like Scarecrow, this isn't a typical boss, it's certainly an encounter that no player will forget. Now that you guys have seen my list, what do you think? How would you rank the boss fights of Batman Arkham Asylum? If you enjoyed the video, be sure to leave a like, drop your thoughts in the comments, share this video with your friends, leave ranking suggestions in the comments below, and definitely subscribe if you want to see more. Peace out, Gothamites.